He let a grieving CEO cry on his shoulder at a funeral, never knowing her mother was the same woman trying to take his daughter away. What she carried in her purse that day would end a 7-year legal war before it even reached trial. My lawyer called on a Thursday morning. She said the hearing had been reopened. She said Eleanor Marsh had filed a custody modification. She said my visitation was suspended effective immediately. I knew exactly what this was about. 7 years earlier. I remember the smell first. Courthouse smell. Floor wax and recycled air and old coffee nobody trusted enough to drink. The kind of building where fluorescent lights hum so constantly you stop hearing them. And then you notice them again. And you can't stop. The chairs in Family Court Department 9 were metal, folded flat against the wall when not in use, cold even in July. I was 33 years old. My daughter, Sophia, was 6. She had her mother's eyes and my patience, which is the better trade. My wife, Helen, was home with her. Sophia didn't need to see this room. I had been to this room before. This was the day it was supposed to end. The social worker's name was Margaret L. Howe, Miss. That is how she signed everything. All 3 initials, always. She had been assigned to our case 14 months earlier. Case number 21666 FC 0471, Riverside County Family Court. She was 47 years old. She wore lanyards with her badge facing outward even when she wasn't at the office. She had a way of smiling with one side of her face while writing something in her file. Arresting confidence. The look of someone who had already decided. She had recommended against modifying my custody arrangement, not because I was unfit, not because I had done anything wrong. Because Eleanor Marsh, my late wife Camille's mother, had resources, had stability, had a 3-bedroom house in Chino Hills, and a certified financial planner, and a neighbor who went to church. I had a 2-bedroom apartment, a freight logistics job, a yellow room I had painted for Sophia the week after Camille died. Margaret L. Howe, Mistel wrote in her file, and I quote, "The father presents as emotionally controlled, but appears to lack the broader support network and financial foundation that would enable primary residential custody." She wrote that on August 2, 2016, she signed it with all 3 initials. She did not look up when she handed me the copy. Judge Patricia Donner read the determination aloud. Primary residential custody, Eleanor Marsh. Supervised visitation, Daniel Reyes. Every other Saturday, 2 hours. Social worker present. I watched Judge Donner sign the order. She signed it the way people sign things they have already forgotten. One motion. Pen lifting cleanly. Her clerk stamped it before the ink dried. Judge Donner said, "Miss Reyes, the court wants to acknowledge your cooperation throughout this process." I said, "Thank you, Your Honor." That was all I said. My court-appointed attorney, a tired man named Gerald Stein who smelled of spearmint and resignation, leaned over and told me we could appeal in 6 months if my circumstances changed significantly. From behind me, I heard Margaret L. Howe say to a colleague, quietly, "These cases almost never reverse. He'll file something, and it'll go nowhere. A year from now, he'll accept the arrangement." She was not trying to be cruel. She was just certain. That is the most dangerous kind of wrong. I took the custody order from Gerald Stein. I read it. All 4 pages. Standing in the hallway outside Department 9, under a fluorescent light that buzzed slightly on the left side. I read the language about Sophia's best interests. I read the language about Eleanor Marsh's household stability. I read the section where the social worker's report was cited as the primary basis for the determination. I folded a small piece of paper, a receipt from the courthouse parking meter 375, timestamp 9:04 a.m., and put it in my coat pocket. I had already been reading custody law for 3 months, not because I expected to lose, because I expected exactly this. I looked at the order one more time. There was a case reference in footnote 2. Small print. Easy to miss. The citation read, "See also, in re. Marriage of Thornton, 1998, 4th Appellate District." Margaret L. Howe had not cited it anywhere in her report. Judge Donner had not mentioned it. Gerald Stein had not mentioned it. I had read it 6 weeks earlier on a Tuesday evening at the kitchen table while Helen made tea in the next room. I said nothing. I folded the order into thirds and put it inside my folder. The folder was brown, rubber-banded, already thick with documents. Gerald Stein shook my hand. He looked sorry. I told him I understood. I walked out of the courthouse into the July heat. Brief shift, Margaret L. Howe returned to her office that afternoon and filed case number 2006-6 FC04471 in the completed drawer. She did not expect to see it again except at the 6-month review, which she expected to be routine. Judge Donner had 3 other hearings that day. She did not think about Daniel Reyes again. Eleanor Marsh's attorney, Claire Sutton of Hargrove and Lund, called Eleanor that evening. It went exactly as expected, she said. He may file something in 6 months. It won't go anywhere. Eleanor said, good. I drove home. Helen was waiting at the door. Sophia was inside watching cartoons. I could hear the television. Helen looked at my face. She had learned to read my face the way you learn to read weather. Not what's happening now, what's coming. Daniel, she said. We're going to be okay, I said. I walked inside. I sat at the kitchen table. I set the folder down. I opened it to footnote 2. The citation had a date, 1998, a case number. An appellate district. I had read it already, but I needed to read it again with this order in front of me, side by side, to confirm what I had already suspected. Helen put her hand on my shoulder. What did they say? She asked. We'll see, I said. I was already 3 moves ahead. Hit subscribe right now, because what I found in that courthouse basement changes everything, and I promise you, nobody in that courtroom saw it coming. Life kept moving the way life does when the ground has shifted beneath it. I went back to work Monday, loaded freight at the depot from 5:30 to 2. Picked Sophia up from Eleanor's at 4 on Saturdays. Signed the supervision form. Watched her draw horses on the back of it because she always needed something to do with her hands. She was 6 years old. She got taller. She lost a tooth. I kept going to the kitchen table at night. Week 1 after the ruling, I printed the In Re Marriage of Thornton decision from the Riverside County Law Library Public Terminal on the 2nd floor. Terminal number 4, the one nearest the window. The printer was slow. The paper smelled like dust and heat. The case was from 1998. 4th Appellate District. Decided on November 14th. Case number D029441. I read all 31 pages. I read it again. I underlined section 4, page 19, with a blue pen I always kept in my shirt pocket. Helen noticed the stack on the kitchen table growing. She didn't ask right away. She made coffee. She sat nearby with her own reading. She gave me space the way you give someone space when you know they are working towards something important, even if you don't fully understand what. After 2 weeks, she asked, "What are you looking for?" "Something they missed," I said. She looked at the stack. "Is it in there?" "Part of it." She made more coffee. She didn't push. The courthouse had a basement. Not many people used it. It held archived filings, old case binders from the early 2000s, some from the 90s, metal shelves, box numbers written on masking tape and black marker. The smell was specific, old paper and cold concrete and something else, something like time sitting still. Box 7C held supplemental filings from family court cases, 1997 through 2001. I found it on a Thursday evening in October, 6 weeks after the ruling. I wore a coat because the basement was cold. I had a notebook, a pen, a flashlight because one of the overhead lights was burned out in the back row. I was looking for the full case file, the exhibits, the original trial record that the appellate decision cited. I found it in box 7C, file folder 14, between 2 unrelated cases. The paper was yellowed, stapled, some pages soft at the corners from handling. I sat on the concrete floor and read. Sophia asked me once why I always read at night. I was at the table. She had come downstairs for water. She was 6.5. She was wearing the blue pajamas with the stars on them. "Dad," she said, Why do you always read those papers? To help us, I said. To help you. She looked at the stack. She looked at me. Okay, she said, and went back upstairs. That was enough. That was everything. The statute was California Family Code Section 3041. I had read it before, multiple times. But I was reading it now against the Thornton decision and against the custody order from case 2006-6 FC0471. All three documents side by side on the kitchen table. The statute language was plain. Prior to making an order granting custody to a person other than a parent, over the objection of a parent, the court shall make a finding that granting custody to a parent would be detrimental to the child. Detrimental. The word appeared once in the statute. It appeared 0 times in Judge Donner's order. I read the order again. All 4 pages. 0 times. The order found Eleanor Marsh preferable. It found her household stable. It found her resources sufficient. It did not find me detrimental. It did not make the finding the statute required. I found it on a Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting at the kitchen table. The November light was flat and gray through the window. The hum of the refrigerator. A pen in my hand. I put the 3 documents side by side. The Thornton decision, the statute, the custody order. I read Section 4 of Thornton one more time. Slowly, a trial court may not award custody to a third party over a fit parent's objection without first making an explicit finding of detriment to the child. The absence of this finding constitutes reversible error. Reversible error. I set the pen down. I sat very still. I called my cousin Marcos. He had gone to law school. He had not practiced in years, but he knew how to read a case. I said, I have a 1998 4th District Appellate decision that requires an explicit detriment finding before third-party custody can be awarded over a fit parent. The custody order in my case contains no such finding. Does the precedent apply? He was quiet for a long time. Where did you find this? He said. Courthouse archive, I said. Box 7C Daniel, he said. The judge never cited this. If she never cited it, she never addressed it. I know, I said. That's a significant omission. I know, I said. I did not call a lawyer that night. I did not do anything that night. I folded the Thornton decision and placed it at the front of my folder. Behind it, the statute printout. Behind that, the custody order, the parking receipt still tucked inside from July. Helen came in from the other room. She looked at my face. She had seen many versions of my face. She had not seen this one. Daniel, she said. I found it, I said. She sat down. She looked at the folder. What is it? She asked. I'll explain when it matters, I said. Right now, I'm just going to keep it. I closed the folder. The precedent was clear. The statute was on my side. Now came the long part. The waiting. Year 1. Sophia turned 7 in March. She asked for a cake with horses on it. Helen made one. I photographed it. I kept the photo in the folder. I went to every Saturday visit. I signed the supervision forms. I drove home and sat at the kitchen table. The folder got thicker. The first call came in April of year 1. My court-appointed attorney had been replaced by a woman named Priya Sharma. She had read my research. She had called Marcos to confirm. She had taken the case. Priya called on a Wednesday afternoon. Eleanor's counsel contacted me, she said. They're offering expanded visitation. Unsupervised. Every other weekend, Friday through Sunday. Plus 1 weeknight per week. I was quiet. Daniel, that's a significant improvement from no, I said. What you currently have. I want you to understand, no, I said. Priya paused. Can I ask why? Not yet, I said. She passed the refusal to Hargrove and Lund. Claire Sutton called Priya the next day. Priya relayed the conversation. Your client should take this, Sutton had said. This is generous. He's not going to get more through litigation. I was sitting at my kitchen table when Priya told me. Sophia's school photo was on the table. She was 7.5. She had started losing her front teeth. Tell her no, I said. Year 1, Claire Sutton's notes, which I would read later in discovery. Client refuses all offers. Attorney appears to be advising him poorly, or he is simply not rational. Continue monitoring. She was confident. She was experienced. She had won 41 of her last 47 family court cases. She did not consider a third option, that I knew something she didn't. Year 3. Sophia was 9. She played on a soccer team. I went to every game I was legally permitted to attend under the supervision terms. I sat in the stands with my folder sometimes because I had been reading during the drive. Sophia scored a goal in October. She looked up at the stands when she scored. She found me immediately. I raised my hand. That was enough. Eleanor Marsh called me directly in November of year 3. She asked if we could meet. Coffee, neutral location. She said she just wanted to talk. I agreed. I am not cruel. I just know what I know. We sat at a table near the window at a place called Harbor Perk on Main. She wore a gray coat. She looked tired in a way she hadn't looked at Camille's funeral 3 years earlier. She said, "Daniel, what will it take?" I wrapped my hands around the coffee cup. I looked at her. I said, "Joint custody. Primary physical with me. Equal decision making." She shook her head. "That's not reasonable given." "Then we don't have anything to discuss," I said. "I'm prepared to offer you," she named a number. "Monthly, more than I had expected." "No," I said. She leaned forward. "Why are you doing this? You know how much Sophia loves being with me. You know this arrangement works. Why won't you just?" "Because it isn't right," I said. I was not angry when I said it. I was just certain. She sat back. She looked at me for a long time. I drank my coffee. I thanked her for meeting me. I left. Year 4. Priya filed 2 more motions. Both were denied. Each denial didn't surprise me. I was building a record. I was stacking. "Are you sure?" Priya asked me. Year 4, February, yes, I said. She nodded. She had read my folders 3 times by now. She knew what I had. She was waiting too. Year 5. Sophia was 11. She asked me once on a Saturday why I was always calm. We were in the car, coming back from the hardware store. She was old enough to ask real questions now. "Dad," she said, "you're never upset. Not at Grandma, not at the lawyers. Why not?" I thought about how to answer. "Because I know what I know," I said. She looked out the window for a long time. "What do you know?" "That this ends right," I said. She didn't ask anything else. She trusted me without needing the details. That is the most important thing anyone has ever given me. Year 5. Claire Sutton's notes, which I read later. Client has refused every offer. Client appears to have legal strategy we are not aware of. Recommend full review of original case file. She was looking. She hadn't found it yet, but she was starting to look. Year 6. November, Sophia was 12. She was playing volleyball now. She had her mother's eyes and my patience, and it turned out her grandmother's stubbornness, which was useful in sports. Priya called on a Friday morning. "Claire Sutton contacted me," she said. I waited. "She wants to know what you want." Her words, "Tell me what he wants, and I'll give it to him." I was quiet for a moment. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator. "Tell her," I said, "that I want what I've always wanted. Joint custody. Primary physical with me. The right to be Sophia's father." Priya relayed the message. Sutton called back within the hour. She named a number, a large number. "A house," she said. "A car. Custody terms more favorable than anything they had offered before." "No," I said. Sutton's voice, through Priya, "What does he want? He has to want something." Priya looked at me across her desk. "He wants his daughter," Priya said. 2 days later, Priya's phone rang. Eleanor Marsh's attorney wanted to discuss terms. Not fight. Discuss. I was sitting at the kitchen table. The 2 folders in front of me rubber banded together. Sophia's school photos lined up along the windowsill. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 6 years of her face. 6 years of her growing without me in the same house. I said yes. Now we can talk. The mediation room was on the 4th floor. Cold chairs. A long table. A window that looked out over the parking structure. February, the tree outside the window had no leaves. Eleanor Marsh sat across from me. She looked 7 years older. That is because she was. She sat very straight, the way people sit when they are trying to look composed and are not. Her attorney, Claire Sutton, sat beside her. Sutton looked at her notes. She looked at the table. She looked at me. She did not yet know what was in my folder, but she knew something was. Priya sat beside me. She had the two folders stacked in front of her, rubber banded together. She had read everything in them many times. The mediator, Judge retired Howard Vance, cleared his throat. "Let's begin," he said. "Counsel for the petitioner, please proceed." Priya opened the top folder. She set 3 documents on the table. The In Re. Marriage of Thornton decision, 1998, 4th Appellate District. Case number D029441. California Family Code Section 3041. Printed and highlighted. The original custody order from August 2, 2016, case number 2016 FC 04471, signed by Judge Patricia Donner. She laid them side by side. She was very calm. She had been waiting for this too. "Your Honor," Priya said. On August 2, 2016, the family court issued a custody order granting primary residential custody to the maternal grandmother Eleanor Marsh over the petitioner Daniel Reyes's objection. She pointed to the Thornton decision. California Family Code Section 3041 is clear. Before awarding custody to a third party over a fit parent's objection, the court must make an explicit finding that granting custody to the parent would be detrimental to the child. Not merely that the third party's household is preferable, not that the third party has more resources. The word required by statute is detriment. She opened the original order. She turned it so Judge Vance could read it. The 2016 order contains no such finding. The word detrimental does not appear once in 4 pages. The order finds Eleanor Marsh's household preferable. It does not find Daniel Reyes unfit. It does not find that his custody would harm Sophia. The Thornton precedent, established 1998, binding on this court, calls that reversible error. The room was quiet. Claire Sutton picked up the Thornton decision. She read. She set it down. She read the statute. She set it down. She conferred with Eleanor quietly. I could not hear what she said. Eleanor looked at me. I looked back at her. I did not look away. I was not angry. I had not been angry for 7 years. Anger was a distraction. Patience was a tool. Judge Vance read for 11 minutes. The room waited. He looked up. Counsel for the respondent, he said to Sutton. What is your response to the Thornton citation? Sutton said, Your Honor, the original court considered the statute. The original order makes no reference to this precedent, Priya said. And the statute language is plain. The finding is required. It is absent. Sutton said, We would argue the intent of the order. Intent is not language, Priya said. The statute requires a finding. There is no finding. Judge Vance removed his glasses. He cleaned them. He put them back on. He said counsel for the petitioner is correct. The Thornton precedent is binding. The absence of a statutory detriment finding in the original order constitutes an error of law. This mediation will proceed on the basis that the original custody determination must be revised. Eleanor Marsh was silent. She understood finally what I had known for 6 years. She had not been beaten by money or anger or a better lawyer. She had been beaten by a Tuesday evening in October, a courthouse basement, box 7C, file folder 14. She had been beaten by a man who sat at a kitchen table every night and read. The terms were finalized at 3:14 p.m. primary physical custody, Daniel Reyes, 70%. Visitation, Eleanor Marsh, every other weekend. 2 weeks in summer. Decision-making authority joint, with Daniel holding final authority on educational and medical matters. Child support, Eleanor Marsh, $800 per month, adjusted annually. Modification bar. Eleanor Marsh could not file for custody modification without clear and convincing evidence of a substantial change in circumstances. I listened to each term. I nodded at each term. When it was done, I shook Priya's hand. She said, You were right. The whole time, You were right. I said yes. We walked out of the building. The February air was cold and thin. The parking structure was gray. Nothing looked dramatic. Everything looked like a regular afternoon. It was the best afternoon of my life. I picked Sophia up from school at 4. She got in the car. She was 12 years old and 3 months. She wore a blue backpack and her volleyball team's hoodie, and she had her mother's eyes, which still caught me sometimes, still stopped me mid-breath. She looked at me. Dad, she said, you're smiling different. Am I? I said. Yeah, she studied my face. What happened? We won, I said. She was quiet for a second. What does that mean? It means you're staying with me, I said. It means I'm your dad. And nobody can take that away. She looked out the windshield. Then she leaned over and put her head on my shoulder for a moment. No words. We drove home. That night I sat at the kitchen table. Helen put her hand on my shoulder. The custody order was in front of me. I read it word by word. My name, Sophia's name, the terms that would govern the years ahead. I folded it once. I stood up. I walked to the shelf in the hallway, the shelf where we kept the things that mattered. I placed the order there, not in my coat pocket anymore, not in the folder, on the shelf where it stays. 7 years of silence had been worth it.